Hello, and today we're going to be reviewing the ryobi PBP1104 18-volt 4 amp hour HP Edge battery. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the overall build quality and the shape and features of this particular battery. For the most part, it's a pretty standard ryobi battery, and there really isn't anything too special. It does feel like the release tabs are a little bit cheaper, at least when compared to some of the previous generation's release tabs. They just feel like it's a cheaper plastic, although I doubt they'll break. And the good news is, well, they actually brought back some of the rubberized texture that disappeared from the last generation of ryobi batteries. So, you know, while there is some more rubberized texture on this particular battery to help protect it in case of a drop, there isn't nearly as much rubberized texture as, you know, the 2 generations old ryobi batteries had, which were basically perfect in my opinion when it comes to their protective capabilities for drops. So, you know, there are pros and cons, but for the most part, it's the pretty, you know, normal showing here. The battery is more compact, which means you can use it in tighter spaces, and this is because they're using a different kind of battery that allows higher release of amps and, well, in turn makes your tool more powerful. Although if you are using a tool that can make full use of the amount of amps that this particular battery can deliver, your battery is going to drain much quicker. That doesn't mean that it's going to drain super quick on all occasions. Like if you're using this in a sander that has a set speed and won't really change no matter what, you probably will get a longer runtime because it's not generating as much heat, so you're not losing that energy in, well, the generation of heat. So, you know, for the most part, I think pretty much everything about this battery is an improvement over the standard HP battery. But there is one area where it isn't an improvement, and that would be the price, because this particular battery is much more expensive than a standard HP battery, which is going to be fine if, you know, you don't mind paying the extra price and you need the added amount of power. But honestly, I would love to see a comparison in between this battery and a 12-volt battery, or sorry, a 12 amp hour battery, just to see what the differences are, because I have a feeling that they'd be pretty similar, and, you know, for just double the price. And with this particular battery, you get 3 times the amount of, well, energy storage. So, you know, you basically get a free battery at that point. So with all that being said, this particular battery is definitely more compact than the standard HP battery, does deliver more power than the standard HP battery, and for the most part it does have a better build quality than the HP battery, because you gain the rubberized texture, which will help protect it in drops. But the, you know, the release tabs feel a little bit cheaper, but it probably isn't going to be a major deal. So, you know, for the most part, everything here is pretty standard. Now, you do know that this is an HP battery because, well, it says it on the packaging and marketing and all that, but it does have those added contacts near the base of the stem on the front or back, depending on what kind of tool you have it in, and that's how you know it can deliver those added amps via the HP system. Although in my testing, it actually did give more power to a standard ryobi tool that doesn't have HP contacts, because of, well, just how the batteries are laid out and the fact that they can, well, deliver more amps, just period. So, you know, for the most part, it's a pretty good showing here. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move on. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about this particular battery in use, and for the most part, it's a pretty good positive showing, but I don't think that this battery is necessarily the best option in all circumstances. So, starting off with the runtime, it's going to be a mixed bag. If you're going to be using this with a flashlight or Bluetooth radio or sander or something that has a fixed runtime that you really can't adjust up or down, I don't think there's really necessarily much of a point, and you're probably going to be better off buying 2 of the regular 4 amp hour batteries versus this particular battery for the cost. But if you are going to be using this in an HP tool, and in certain situations, even some of the ryobi's non-HP tools, this particular battery can deliver a much better performance, and it can deliver much better performance than even a standard ryobi HP battery. Although if you're talking about the ryobi HP 12 amp hour battery, that's going to be a whole other story. But, you know, if you're just comparing apples to apples in the 4 amp hour range, this particular battery can deliver much more amperage at a, well, 4 amp hour storage range. And like I said, that can be really useful in certain circumstances, and in other circumstances it's not going to be nearly as useful. What I found is that I can usually cut up about 2 pallets worth of wood with the Edge battery. You know, sometimes I can make it to 1.5 pallets before I have to take it in and charge it. And with a regular HP 4 amp hour battery, I can cut up, well, basically about 4 to 5 pallets worth of wood. So, you know, there's a lot of energy that is being wasted because the reciprocating saw just isn't being efficient with the energy, and the battery is just giving the saw all the energy at once whenever it wants it, which means that it sounds better, it cuts quicker, but I'm wasting a lot of energy because it's just not being efficient in how it's dispersing that energy versus a regular HP battery. So when I'm cutting up pallets, Even though it's a little bit slower, it's probably better to use the regular HP batteries because of just the efficiency of them. But in other circumstances, the HP battery, or the Edge battery I should say, is going to be a much better performer, such as with their 10-inch miter saw and their cordless cutoff tool. In both of those situations, I much prefer using the Edge battery in my 10-inch miter saw and the cordless cutoff tool, even though the cordless cutoff tool doesn't have those add contacts that most of the HP lineup has. You know, it's an HP tool that doesn't have the add HP contacts. So why are you calling it? Is it just because it's a brushless motor? I don't know. ryobi's naming scheme is a little bit confusing sometimes. But at the end of the day, the fact is that both of those tools benefited from using the Edge battery over the regular HP battery, and definitely a major improvement over a regular 4 amp hour battery. So, you know, when I'm using my 10-inch miter saw, I'm definitely going to prefer using it with the, you know, Edge battery. Now, that doesn't mean that having more power or more amperage is always going to be the case. I noticed when I tried using the Edge battery in my, you know, 18-volt jigsaw, the non-HP version, that while the blade speed did go up substantially, it wasn't able to cut nearly as well because the blade was just going too fast, and thus it was bucking much more and it wasn't delivering a smooth cut. It just wasn't a great experience, and when I switched back to a regular 4 amp hour battery, it did much better. So there are definitely certain circumstances where you don't want to use the HP battery or the HP Edge battery at all because the tool just can't handle it. So it really is going to depend on your tool and the applications that you're going to be using it for. So, you know, for the most part, the amount of power that this battery can deliver and the runtime is going to vary, and, you know, that is to be expected. Okay, so now some of the other tools I tried using this particular battery in were the ryobi nailers, or at least 2 different ryobi nailers, a 18 gauge and the framing 30-degree nailer, and in both of those particular tools it worked just fine. But then again, the regular HP battery and even the regular battery work just fine in both those tools, so I don't really think there's much of a point in using the HP battery and the ryobi nailers, at least none of the nailers I own. And it really actually surprised me that the regular ryobi battery ran the, you know, 3/4 or the 3.5-inch nailer. You know, it really surprised me that the regular ryobi battery powered that just fine. So that was a little bit surprising. And then I also tried it in the ryobi compressor, and it did make the air compressor fill up about, you know, I think it was about 4 seconds faster. So not a huge increase, but, you know, it was a bit quicker. And then I also tried using it in the ryobi sweepers. You know, I think the motor sounded like it was working a little bit faster, but suction-wise, it really wasn't a noticeable difference. And then, you know, pretty much on everything else that I tried it on, it seemed to have different effects. I definitely think that the HP Edge battery helped the regular circular saw, the non-HP 5.5-inch circular saw from ryobi work a little bit better. And I think it also helped the regular ryobi reciprocating saw work a little bit better. But for the most part, I don't think it's necessarily the biggest leap in the world that would justify the price difference between that and the regular battery or even an HP battery. So, you know, your usage cases may vary. But with that being said, let's go ahead and recap with the pros and cons, and then I'll give you my final verdict on this particular battery. And the first pro would be more amps. This particular battery can deliver more power to the tool, which means that it can help your larger saws operate better and thus, well, making them more useful. So this is a pro in my opinion. And another pro would be it's a little bit smaller and just a tad bit lighter. So this is another pro in its favor. And another pro would be the 21700 tabless batteries. If something goes wrong and you want to repair it yourself, you should be able to. And also, they're going to be much more efficient than the smaller 18650 cells. So in my opinion, this is a pro. And another pro would be that it runs cooler. This means that you'll be able to recharge it quicker without having to wait for it to cool down as long, and it will also help with the overall life of the battery itself. So this is a pro in my opinion. And the first meh is shorter runtime. Now there are some caveats here, but when you are using it in higher power tools, your runtime isn't going to be as good. But of course that's because you're getting more, well, power out of the tool. So it's not really a meh, it's more of something you need to be aware of. And the first con is no USB anything. I was really hoping on the next generation of ryobi batteries we were going to get some built-in USB ports. This can be super helpful in emergency situations and even non-emergency situations. And the fact that we didn't get any USB-C ports or USB-A ports built into the battery is a bit of a disappointment. A lot of brands are starting to add them to their batteries, and that would have been something nice to see on this particular battery. Okay, next con is the price, coming in at a whopping $129. That means that this is a very expensive battery. For context, you can get two of the regular ryobi 4 amp hour batteries for basically $120, and you can get two of the 6 amp hour HP batteries for $160. And if you really want to go crazy, you can pick up one of the HP 12 amp hour batteries for $240, which basically is, you know, double the price, but gives you 3 times the amount of power storage and about the same kind of performance. So you really need to be sure of what you're spending your money on, and if this is the way you want to be spending your money to get the, well, performance that you need. So, you know, the price is a bit of a con on this particular battery. And that is it for the pros and cons. Final thoughts on this particular battery. Is it hype or is it real? I think in some regards it absolutely is real, and in other regards it's a little bit of hype. Honestly, it's a good battery that is, well, very highly priced. So, you know, considering what you're getting here, in certain situations it makes sense. For me personally, I probably wouldn't buy this battery on its own at its full retail price. I'd wait till a sale comes up, or I'd buy it when it's bundled with another tool. And in those situations, I think it's well worth the, you know, effort of getting a hold of it, because in certain situations it definitely does help the tool and, well, make your job a little bit quicker and easier. And there are certain tools that can definitely benefit from using this particular battery, but I don't think it's necessarily a replacement for the regular HP batteries or even just the regular ryobi batteries. So, you know, your own usages may vary, but for me personally, I'm perfectly satisfied with only having 1 or 2 of these batteries, and the majority of the batteries I use be, you know, regular HP batteries, and then have a few of the regular batteries for backups for, well, work lights and Bluetooth radios and such. So, you know, it's up to you, but at its full retail price, it's probably not the best deal in the world. But like I said earlier, the choice will be up to you. But for certain situations, this battery comes recommended. And that is it for this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe, and we will see you all next time. God bless.